the Agile brand.
Welcome to the B2B Agility Podcast, where we look at the factors that drive success in B2B marketing, with a focus on the people, processes, data, and platforms that make B2B brands stand out and thrive in a competitive marketplace. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advising Fortune 1000 brands on MarTech, marketing operations, and CX, best-selling author and speaker. Now let's get on to the show. Is your marketing operations team set up to be a strategic driver of growth, or are they stuck managing tools and putting out fires? Today, we're joined by Mike Rizzo, founder of MarketingOps.com. Mike is here to discuss the 2024 State of the Marketing Operations Professional Report, which is based on insights from over 600 MOps professionals. This report sheds light on the evolving role of marketing ops, the challenges they face, and the opportunities for B2B leaders to elevate the function as a strategic driver of growth. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Always good to talk shop about marketing ops.
Hey, I like it too. So we're definitely looking forward to this. Before we dive in, though, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background and your role at MarketingOps.com?
Sure. Yeah. The brief version for those that haven't heard it is I got my start in marketing, MarTech, really, on the ad tech side of things. Learned all about ad networks, retargeting, and pixels, and all the fun things. And from there, got a healthy respect for what it's like to write some HTML and do a little bit of coding. Told me that wasn't as daunting as I once thought it was. And I sort of parlayed that experience about the broader sort of advertising technology landscape and some of this like new sense of comfort with HTML to, well, maybe I could build some emails, and eventually tried to build out some email, HTML emails and websites. Took my first opportunity at a B2B SaaS company during 2017-ish area. And I was in a demand gen sort of field marketing role, mixing like multiple hats as one does as a startup, doing all things marketing operations and demand gen. And so I was building out a full tech stack for webinars and you name it. Most of my career has been in B2B SaaS, startups, and ad tech. I'm based here in Orange County, California, and often was a team of one. So, people would sort of roll their eyes back in their head if I came to them with a problem that I was having. And I endeavored to start a little channel on Slack. And now my role today is to figure out how to best support the elevation and sort of advocacy for how important this role is, this marketing operations role, because it's a bit lonely at times when you're a team of one. And so now today we've got thousands of members in the community, literally like 6,300 people hanging out in Slack, talking shop every day, and, thousands more that watch all of our content or listen to our podcast, all that kind of stuff. And so I like to say now you can go from a team of one to a team of 1,000 pretty quickly.
Nice. That's great. Yeah. Well, and definitely, marketing ops has grown quite a bit over the years, right? So, it's turned into, a respected, not that it was disreputable before, but it's turned into a respected career path. Sure. And, what do you think has driven this transformation over the years? And, I want to talk about the 2024 report, but, what do you think has driven this transformation over the years?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're at a bit of an inflection point with marketing operations in general. So I would say the term marketing operations was really born out of B2B SaaS, right? It sort of comes from the B2B side. If you look at the B2C landscape, you've seen marketing technologists for a little bit longer, in fact. They often just refer to themselves as things like lifecycle marketer, for example. And so for those of you out there that are sort of that fall into the category of a lifecycle marketer or B2C sort of brand, you've probably been doing marketing technology and operations for even longer than some of us that now have this role, marketing operations by title. In the B2B side of things, the complexity of trying to understand the lifecycle management and, all the demand waterfalls that were popularized, of course, over the years, we were given this sort of greenfield opportunity earlier, right, about 10 years ago or so, maybe a little more, to say, we have to figure out how all this stuff works and try to apply these concepts in theory, right? These demand waterfall principles, MQLs to SQLs to opportunities, all of the life cycle that you're trying to manage, and figure out how to stitch together this go-to-market technology, stack, right? But really, when we got started, it was just marketing automation. And so we were just kind of figuring out just the marketing automation piece of that. Fast forward, part of the shift today is that we're not trying to stumble and fumble our way through how do we just make this stuff send emails and do things. We've reached a new tipping point where it's like, well, wait a minute. How does a business go to market today?
Yeah.
How do we achieve the outcomes that we're looking to achieve? And fundamentally, we all understand that it is not done without technology in a modern go-to-market, business, right? And so now it's about the strategy and the opportunity for marketing operations. The strategic impact is really being influenced by, okay, the market understands that this technology, A, is definitely here to stay, right, and B, is critical to your ability to go to market. So I think that's sort of the thing that's cascaded into this new era for marketing operations, which is, allowing us to be seen as more strategic. I will say, like, we 1,000% were the, hey, push the button and hit send on the emails, right? Like, that was our job, was to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton of like, is it the right way to do that yet?
Right. Yeah.
But there was always the challenge of, is this the right way to do this? Should there be should we be thinking about this deployment strategy a little differently? And now we're reaching a new point where we have the opportunity to ask those questions and push back on the organization to do it the right way.
Well, yeah, and that's where, I'm going to pull a few stats from the 2024 State of the Marketing Operations report here. So, one of those is right in line with this, with 37% of marketing ops professionals reporting that they have that strategic voice that you're talking about in decision making. It's 37. There's still room to grow there upwards, but that's still, to your point, from several years back being the button pusher or whatever, that's still some significant growth. What does this shift mean for the future of the discipline?
I think first and foremost, it means that if you're, let's just two different lenses to look at this through, right? If you're a leader of a marketing organization or just a business in general, your opportunity now is to go find your expert in go-to-market technology, which is now this marketing operations professional, and ask them, okay, I make widgets or I sell services, right? Whatever it is that you're doing. Here's fundamentally the thing that I do, and I do it well. What I don't know how to do well is package that all up into a tech stack and deploy it into the market and make sure that I get the feedback so that I understand what's working and what's not. Your job is to go, as the business leader or marketing leader, is to go hire the individual that can build you a go-to-market tech stack of the future that's in line with your ability to get market feedback on a consistent basis and create a nice customer journey, right? For the marketing operations professionals, that should be like, your eyebrows are going up, you're getting a big smile on your face because you're really excited about the opportunity to go build effectively a product in the market, right? Your product is now made up of many tools and many systems, and you get to stitch those together in really unique ways because every business has its own unique fingerprint and its own unique motion. And it's an exciting time for you to now go and sort of charge forward and think about, how can I align to your goals, executive, right? What are you looking to achieve this year? And how can I best support you and build a product that supports this organization's ultimate outcome, which is like, renewals and net new customers, new logos, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's an exciting time depending on which side you're looking at, right? If you're a practitioner, step up and ask the questions on how you can say, hey, let's optimize our go-to-market motion and build a go-to-market product. And if you're a leader, say, hey, I'm looking to optimize my go-to-market strategy and I would like to work with you to do that.
Yeah. So that is the flip side of the, with 37% feeling like they have a strategic voice, I'm sure there's some in there that those leaders or the execs are not seeing the value necessarily. But I think, for those others, I think that's great advice to like bring them to the table, right? I mean, what advice would you have to like, what are some symptoms of a greater need for, strategy and marketing ops that those leaders that may be skeptical or don't even know what they don't know, like what's a symptom that could point them in the right direction of like, hey, let's bring the marketing ops folks to the table?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. Usually it shows up in the form of distrust or lack of clarity on sort of aligned definition of your go-to-market business, like strategy, right? So like that was a lot of like fluff words to say very concretely, if there is a data point that you're looking at, let's say the conversion rate between stage 1 to stage 2 in your pipeline, or maybe your buyer's journey, stage 1 to stage 2, and you don't trust that those numbers are coming from a particular place, it's probably time for you to bring in your marketing operations team and figure out how to create a more trustworthy go-to-market operating model. Yeah. In a lot of ways, they will act a little bit as I think the turn or phrase is to be Switzerland, right? Someone that's a bit of a neutral party, and to say, okay, well, do we all agree that we're going to measure success in this way, and they can be that sort of purveyor of truth to say, no, this is what we said that the plan was. To be able to go measure our capabilities. If you have a lot of question marks about where data come from or what's working or what's not working, or even when you're presented with something and you're like, I don't know if that's true or not, it's probably a good idea to just bring in your marketing operations person and start having more discussion earlier in the process about how to go to market.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think there's a lot of organizations that might...
I've seen it
to at least a little of that, right? It's
for sure. I mean, it's really hard to trust every single number that you're looking at. I mean, I'm running an organization today, and I'm like, who owns the foundational sort of data layer that's feeding this machine right now that we're looking at, this report that we're looking at?
Right.
Is it me? Oh shoot. Well, then in that case, I don't trust it.
Right.
Hi, I'm Chris Gethard, and I'm very excited to tell you about Beautiful Anonymous, a podcast where I talk to random people on the phone. I tweet out a phone number, thousands of people try to call. You talk to one of them, they stay anonymous. I can't hang up. That's all the rules. I never know what's going to happen. We get serious ones. I've talked with meth dealers on their way to prison. I've talked to people who survived mass shootings. Crazy funny ones. I talked to a guy with a goose laugh, somebody who dresses up as a pirate on the weekends. I never know what's going to happen. It's a great show. Subscribe today, Beautiful Anonymous.
Nice. So another thing from the report, talking about employee engagement metrics and some of the potential struggles there. There's some challenges with engagement metrics, concerns over compensation, role clarity, feeling valued. Touched on this a little bit maybe, and just some of the lack of clarity from leadership and stuff. But how can leaders address some of these issues so that the teams are not only doing valuable work, but feeling valued?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of twofold. I think it's hard. The marketing operations is a difficult thing to sort of wrap your head around as an executive in some ways, because they're not directly tied to revenue, right? They're not like creating campaigns in the sense that they're coming up with the next thing that they want to push into the market. They're certainly not literally filling the top of the funnel. They're, in many cases, they're optimizing the delivery of that thing, and they're optimizing your ability to be able to measure whatever it is that you think you want to try. And without it, you're going to end up with a lot of question marks, like we were just talking about. And so if you're a practitioner, I think it's important for you to advocate for establishing an effective sort of product roadmap, right? And saying, hey, based on the business's goals, here's how I'd like to make sure I impact our ability to go to market. And I'm going to focus on enriching our pipeline at the top of the funnel to be able to have a trickle down impact on our ability to convert more leads as they come in. right?
Yeah.
I'm going to establish new mechanisms to get a feedback loop as we get further down the pipeline for closed loss deals, and leverage a new AI model to be able to feed that data back to our marketing team to say, hey, the leads and where they came from and some of the closed loss reasons are now, surfacing, so that you can have a better go-to-market strategy and create some messaging to curtail some of those maybe responses or what have you. That's a product mindset, right? And so your job is to say, I'm gonna try to attack some of what I see as challenges, or at least lay out my plan to support the business, and you'll start to earn more of that opportunity and that trust and that feeling valued. The reality is that if you're not able to articulate some level of what value you want to bring to in any role, right? This isn't just marketing operations.
Yeah.
If you can't articulate the value that you want to bring to an organization, then you are going to run into some challenges around, do I feel valued in my role or what have you?
Yeah.
On the flip side, managers, these are incredibly, executives and managers who have the opportunity to work with a marketing operations professional. They're incredibly strategic thinkers. Every aspect of what goes into building a go-to-market tech stack, down to whether or not you make the field a plain text field that you're going to ask for inputs on, or a pick list, or a checkbox, or a Boolean, that has a strategic value to the organization, and whether or not the field should even be created, because maybe it exists somewhere else. There is a decision tree that happens every single time, and these are, in many, many cases, it's a different form of creativity, and I encourage you to lean on them, because they're sort of your strategists in a lot of ways, right? That, I don't know. I know I'm on my own soapbox about this, and I obviously represent a community full of these professionals, but there is no one better suited to try to translate the needs of the business to the modern technology stack today. Like, just period.
Yeah.
Full
so
stop.
then, yeah, no, I agreed. And, I think from a leadership standpoint as well, another one of the things from the report was just marketing ops professionals reporting insufficient training opportunities. So, looking at this from a leader perspective that doesn't know marketing ops inside and out, it's like, you could go down there's some project management, there's some marketing, there's some business. It's like, where should organizations invest in upskilling their marketing ops teams?
Yeah. Beyond sending them to our conference, it's our community, not trying to just plug for what we're working on, but obviously we would love for you to send them to our community and for them to network with other professionals. Lo and behold, when you go from the era that we came from, which was stumbling and fumbling our way through how to use this technology, to, often being small teams, you end up with a group of people that are just ready to help others. Yeah. And what's interesting about our community and this profession in general is that, like, you're almost literally built to help people. Like, if Greg, you asked me, how do I go do X? My inclination is to try to figure out how to help you do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm going to start to Google and find my network and help you achieve your goal. Like, I'm a problem solver. And so when you put your marketing operations professional in a community full of problem solvers, all of a sudden problems get solved.
Yeah.
Really quickly. And so upskilling in this way, we're working really hard to bring in effective new educational paths around just sort of like database management and integrations, how to think about your product roadmap like a product manager, and bring in the concepts, like the foundational concepts of what it means to be in finance, so that this professional can now have an even more well-rounded understanding of, okay, how does a business recognize revenue? In what different ways does a business make money? So that as I go to build out your tech stack, I can have a better conversation about how I think you as the executive are probably perceiving the business. I would encourage you to, beyond sending them to our stuff, I would encourage you to let them, of course, go earn their certifications in a wide array of platforms. The more that they can understand the broader landscape of technology, the more they can enable the business, right? So there's certifications from all kinds of MarTech vendors out there. I would encourage you to let them sort of like spread their wings and try them, even if they're not currently using those platforms. The understanding of how they work can impact implementation and methodology and framework on how they might implement something, even though they're not using that same platform today. They're seeing the art of the possible in another one. They're saying, oh, you know what? I could recreate some of that in this other way, even though we don't have that tool today. So I would encourage you to also let them go sort of explore some of those other things. And please encourage them to go pick up some of those core sort of foundational elements. Coincidentally, a lot of our community does not come from marketing as a background. I take for granted all the time that I went to a business school and I got an emphasis in marketing. Many, many, many of the members in our community come from psychology. They were bakers, they were teachers before, they were all kinds of different professions, and they found their way by accident into this thing and they fell in love with it. Yeah. And so there are aspects of, you know what, let them go learn the foundations of marketing too, the 4 Ps and, you know, some of the core principles of just marketing in general. I'm sure they picked them up along the way, but give them the opportunity to go learn some of that foundational stuff too, because it'll just make them that much more impactful to your organization.
Yeah. It definitely seems like being able to connect all those dots is kind of part of the job. You know, it's part of the value that those professionals can bring. And, you know, one thing coming up more and more often is data and, you know, data-driven initiatives. Certainly the report shows, you know, 88% of respondents are investing in or planning to invest in data-driven initiatives. I'm sure AI has a lot to do with that, but that's not the only reason. But certainly, you know, AI requires good data to do better things and you know, and all that. So, you know, what does an emphasis on data mean for the marketing ops role in general? And, you know, how can teams ensure they're making the most of their data?
Yeah, you know, this is a good question. Data is, at the end of the day, it is everything to a business, right? I mean, we sort of touched on it earlier in the show here, where we said, look, if you're looking at a report and you're questioning whether or not that is a valid, you know, statement or fact, right? Right. It all boils down to the data and what's feeding into the engine. AI, you can't escape it. It is absolutely a core like part of the conversation. It is only going to be as good as the data that you feed it, within reason, right? Like obviously it can operate more intelligently than we can, especially if it's trained in a particular way to understand just models and relational data and whether or not there is a factor of influence to a particular end goal, right? So you might be able to work with an AI that is specifically trained to say, I would like the outcome to be that the customer is assigned to a closed won deal. And now you need to look at the relationship of all these data points to the ability to achieve that goal. Are there any commonalities? And so yes, like you could just feed it all your data and ask those questions, right? But within that's sort of like within reason. Ideally, you're feeding it the things that matter most to the organization that you're all paying attention to anyway. And so when you ask about the emphasis on data and how do teams sort of ensure that they're making the most of it, really it comes down to just definitions and alignment and what do you want to track, and starting to learn. You know, I don't want to pretend like you can just be a prompt engineer and get all the answers from these AI tools, but starting to learn how to best leverage how these new tools in this new era that we're in interact with data and make sure that those data pipelines that you have access to, right, are feeding into some sort of system that allows you to create those queries. If they are all operating in different silos, that's going to end up being a little bit more difficult to be able to get the answers to the business questions that you have.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah.
Running an online business is hard enough without the stress and time consumption of managing hosting. Whether managing one WordPress site or dozens, Kinsta's managed solutions offer speed, enterprise-grade security, and an intuitive dashboard. With 24/7, 365 human-only expert support, get peace of mind that your sites stay online, secure, and performing their best. Start today and get your first month free with migrations handled for you. Learn more at kinsta.com/podcast. That's KINSTA.com/podcast.
Geico's motorcycle expertise gives me the coverage I need, like 24/7 claims. I'm on cloud 9.
Disclaimer, clouds are wholly unable to support the weight of an adult human.
What's happening?
Furthermore, clouds are not numbered. Even if you procured a jetpack and searched, you'd find no cloud numbered 9. However, at that altitude, you'd likely befriend a flock of migrating snow geese.
Geese?
Who'd encourage you to leave your 24/7 Geico motorcycle claims insurance behind, as they would take you in and even share their dinner of crickets and clovers with you.
Ew.
Geico assumes no liability for any indigestion that may occur from a clover cricket dinner. Geico. Expertise for your motorcycle.
Yeah. So we talked a bit about leadership's relationship with marketing ops, but I want to talk about the collaboration with other teams as well. So, whether it's sales, rev ops, IT, other parts of the business even, it seems like collaboration is improving, but always room for growth, right? What are you seeing as some of the barriers to alignment, and, how can organizations, whether it's leadership or people elsewhere in the org, how can they foster better cross-functional collaboration?
First seek to understand, right? Yep. That's a message for everybody, whether you're in marketing operations, rev ops, IT, sales, it doesn't matter. Seek to understand, try to find a shared language. Those are probably, I think, said differently, like the barriers are there's a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
And there's a lack of shared language. And so if you can try to solve for some of those things, you sort of heard me say it a few times already, right? Like creating a shared definition of what success looks like. That will start to break down a lot of those barriers. I will say you're inevitably going to run into competing priorities, right? There's sort of this, I need to close a certain number of deals on the sales side. I need to generate a certain amount of reach and leads and brand awareness on the marketing side. On the IT side, I need to have a secure and stable infrastructure that, doesn't allow for any leakage or risk of all kinds of things.
Right.
And so these are all barriers that if either of those groups don't understand the other's challenges, you're going to run into alignment issues, right? And so I think for the marketing operations professional out there listening to this, it's your job to figure out what their sort of these other departmental goals are, right? And what they're looking to achieve. And it is also your job to figure out how to articulate and communicate sort of your limitations. If somebody says, hey, let's roll out ABM, this year, you're going to need to figure out how to stitch that together between marketing, sales, and IT, depending on the size of your organization. That's a product job, right? You got to figure out what their user needs are, what your tech stack looks like, what the feature deployment schedule looks like, all of that stuff. And so, break down the barriers.
It seems like the challenge is also kind of the solution, in that marketing ops, as you were saying earlier, that's kind of their role, and I would imagine it's the kind of the person that gravitates towards that role of trying to connect dots and solve problems. And it doesn't mean that every marketing ops person has that down, but it seems like it's part of the role, and good marketing ops professionals want to solve those problems as opposed to be barriers. There's other, stereotypical departments that might, be perceived as having barriers and silos and so on and so forth. But marketing ops just doesn't seem that way, because I don't think they can be, right?
It's a great call out. There's two things there. You're right. Now in the landscape, I don't think they can be a barrier. They need to be the gateway to make, it's like they're more of like the art of the possible people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Marketing operations often in the past and still today is seen as like the no people. Like, how do you say no without saying no?
Right.
Which is going to hold true still, right? Because if it's just a pure limitation of like, there's not enough resources to be able to make something happen, like you have to figure out how to do that and show the reasons why. But like, they're not telling you, no, I can't send you an email or send an email for you because they don't want to. It's usually because there's some sort of actual limitation. You bought the list and it's illegal.
Right. Yeah.
So historically, there has been this sense of MOPS as sort of a barrier. They slow things down, but they do it within reason. Yeah. But today, we hear the term RevOps everywhere. I often make the argument that the RevOps category is really a marketing ops person has the best opportunity to grow into that RevOps role compared to pretty much any other role. Because really, when you think about the end-to-end funnel, like everything that happens before the top of the funnel down to the end, and the renewal, right? Like someone buying again, there is no role that is tasked with trying to figure out how to measure that whole thing other than marketing operations. Everybody else is like focused on a little piece, a very complex piece of their business, and not to dismiss it, but it is usually just a slice of the funnel, of the bow tie or whatever version of your funnel that you want to look at, right? But MOPS is like literally tasked with, okay, yeah, we need to be able to track people that are visiting our website and de-anonymize and then enrich. And then as they're going through the funnel, I need to measure the whole thing. And then I need to know who renews. Like, it is your job. That is RevOps, man. Yeah. It's everything. And I want to be able to attribute it to revenue. Anyway, so soapbox, stepping down again. But yes.
No. Well, so, I mean, along those lines, and, as we wrap up here, certainly you have a great purview with the community that you're part of and that you've built. Looking at 2025 and beyond, what are you excited about as in the evolution of marketing ops? And but what advice would you have to those that are part of that community?
For sure. I'm most excited about the opportunity to sort of seize the moment when it comes to certainly AI and leveraging this sort of new era. I'm definitely not alone. I'm borrowing words from some very amazing marketing operations professionals in our community. Paul Wilson comes to mind when I talk about this part of any talk track when I'm asked this question. And, you've been doing your version of AI for a long time in marketing operations. Like lead scoring was like your best bet at trying to figure out how to prioritize and optimize a lead funnel. Now there's just a machine that can do it even faster. You have an incredible opportunity to go just take advantage of moving even faster with these technologies. And so I'm most excited about the landscape of how quickly things are going to change. And I would say my advice to you is to lean in, start asking the hard questions, and figure out what your AI roadmap is going to be. And if you're a part of our community, definitely participate in some of the workshops and the conversations we're going to be having exactly to that effect, because the time is now.
Yeah. Again, I'd like to thank Mike Rizzo, founder of marketingops.com. To learn more about Mike and Marketing Ops, you can follow the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to the B2B Agility Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.b2bagility.com. That's b2bagility.com. While you're there, check out my series of best-selling Agile brand guides covering a wide variety of marketing technology topics, or you can search for Greg Kihlstrom on Amazon. Until next time, stay focused and stay agile.
The Agile brand.
Running an online business is hard enough without the stress and time consumption of managing hosting. Whether managing one WordPress site or dozens, Kinsta's managed solutions offer speed, enterprise-grade security, and an intuitive dashboard. With 24/7, 365 human-only expert support, get peace of mind that your sites stay online, secure, and performing their best. Start today and get your first month free with migrations handled for you. Learn more at kinsta.com/podcast. That's KINSTA.com/podcast.